Give me 60 seconds, just 1 minute of your attention. And I promise this is not noise, this is a calling. There are moments in life when God doesn't shout. He whispers, and only a few slow down enough to hear it. This is that moment. This is that whisper. You feel it, don't you? That tug in your spirit. That quiet unrest when everything around you looks fine, but something inside you says, there's more. That is not confusion, that is calling. Not everyone will understand it. In fact, most people won't, because a calling from God will often isolate you before it elevates you. You were not chosen to blend in. You were chosen to stand apart. And yes, it will cost you comfort. It will cost you approval. It may even cost you relationships. But what God is building in you is far greater than anything you're losing around you. Stop asking for easy. Stop asking for normal. You were not designed for ordinary living. You were marked for purpose before you ever took your first breath. This is your wake-up moment. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. Answer the call, even if your voice shakes. There are moments when everything around you appears stable, predictable, even successful, yet something deep within refuses to settle. It's not loud, it's not chaotic, it doesn't demand attention the way the world does, but it lingers. It presses gently against your spirit in quiet hours, in still moments, in the spaces where distractions fade and truth begins to surface. This is not restlessness without reason. This is not confusion. This is the whisper of God, and it does not come to entertain you. It comes to awaken you. Most people are trained to respond only to what is loud, urgent, and visible. But God often chooses the opposite. He speaks in ways that require sensitivity, stillness, and discernment. And that's why many miss it. Because the whisper doesn't compete, it invites. It doesn't force, it reveals. And when it comes, it doesn't always make sense at first. In fact, it often disrupts what you thought was your plan. It unsettles your routines. It makes you question paths you were once certain about. That's because divine purpose will never fully align with comfortable patterns. You start to notice things shifting inside you. What once satisfied you begins to feel empty. Conversations that once excited you now feel shallow. Goals that once drove you suddenly lose their meaning. And it can be unsettling, even frustrating, because you can't fully explain it to anyone else. People around you may think you're overthinking or changing too much, or becoming distant. But what they don't understand is that something sacred is happening within you. The whisper is pulling you away from surface-level living into something deeper, something eternal. This disruption is not punishment. It is preparation. God is not trying to take something from you. He is trying to lead you into something greater. But before elevation, there must be separation. Before clarity, there is often confusion. Before direction becomes visible, there is a moment where you must trust without seeing. And that's where many hesitate. Because it's easier to stay where things are known than to follow a voice that leads into uncertainty. But the whisper doesn't leave you the same. It keeps returning. It keeps nudging. It keeps reminding you that you were not created to live on autopilot. There's a reason your spirit refuses to stay comfortable. There's a reason your heart feels pulled towards something you cannot fully define. That tension you feel is not meant to break you. It is meant to move you. It is God gently interrupting your ordinary so he can introduce you to your purpose. And the more you ignore it, the louder the silence becomes. The more you try to drown it out with distractions, the heavier it sits on your soul. Because this whisper carries weight. It carries truth. It carries identity. It is calling you to step out of what is easy and into what is meaningful, to release what is temporary and reach for what is eternal, to stop living by default and start living by design, to recognize that this quiet stirring is not slutshiness, but intention, not weakness, but awakening, not a loss of direction, but the beginning of divine alignment. And it will continue to press upon your spirit until you begin to listen, until you begin to respond, until you begin to move in faith, even when you don't fully understand where it is leading, even when the path ahead remains unseen, even when everything familiar begins to feel like something you're slowly being called to leave behind, even when you realize that this whisper is not asking for your comfort, but for your surrender, not for your convenience, but for your obedience. There comes a point in the journey where what once felt familiar begins to feel distant, and what once felt secure begins to lose its grip on your heart. It's not always dramatic, not always obvious, but it is undeniable. God begins to separate you, not to harm you, not to abandon you, but to prepare you. Because what he is calling you into cannot be carried by the version of you that is still attached to everything you've outgrown. Separation is one of the most misunderstood parts of a calling. People often interpret it as loss, rejection, or isolation, but in the hands of God, it is refinement. It is intentional. It is necessary, because not everything that has been with you can go where you are going. Some environments are too small for your growth. Some relationships are too limited for your purpose. Some habits are too heavy for your next level. And if God allowed you to carry all of it forward, it would crush the very calling he placed inside you. So he begins to create distance. Conversations change. Connections weaken. Opportunities shift. You may find yourself feeling alone, even in rooms full of people. You may notice that you no longer fit into spaces that once felt like home. And it can be painful because you remember what it used to feel like. You remember the comfort, the laughter, the sense of belonging. But what you are experiencing is not rejection, it is redirection. God is teaching you how to stand without leaning on what used to hold you up. He is showing you that your identity is not rooted in people, places, or patterns, but in him alone. And that process requires stripping away the things you once depended on. Because as long as you rely on them, you will never fully rely on him. This season often feels quiet, even lonely. The noise fades, the distractions disappear, and you are left with yourself and God in a way that feels unfamiliar. But this is where transformation happens, in the silence, in the stillness, in the moments where there is nothing to hold onto except faith. Because God is not just changing your surroundings, he is changing you. He is strengthening your spirit. He is sharpening your discernment. He is teaching you to hear his voice more clearly than the voices around you. And while others may not understand why you've changed, why you've pulled back, why you no longer engage the same way, it's because they're not walking through what you're walking through. They cannot see what God is showing you in private. Separation requires trust. It requires you to believe that what God is removing is not greater than what he is preparing. It requires you to release your grip on what is comfortable so you can receive what is purposeful. And that is not easy, because letting go often feels like losing, even when it's actually making space. But every step of distance has intention. Every moment of disconnection has purpose. God is not emptying your life. He is clearing it. He is making room for alignment, for clarity, for relationships and opportunities that match the calling he placed on you. And while it may feel like you're being set apart, what is really happening is that you are being set in position, being shaped in ways you cannot yet fully see, being guided through a process that is preparing you for something that will require a stronger spirit, a clearer mind, and a deeper dependence on him. And even though the process feels uncomfortable and unfamiliar, it is not without direction. It is not without meaning. It is not without divine intention, because every step away from what no longer fits is a step closer to what has been waiting for you all along. There is a moment in every calling where the excitement fades and the reality of the cost begins to surface. It's the point where purpose stops feeling like inspiration and starts demanding something from you. Because a true calling is never just about what you gain, it is about what you are willing to give up. And this is where many hesitate, not because they don't believe, but because they begin to understand that obedience will require sacrifice. You cannot carry everything into your calling. Some things must be laid down. Approval from others, the need to be understood, the comfort of staying where it's easy. These are often the first to go. Because the path God sets before you is not designed to be validated by everyone around you. In fact, there will be moments when it feels like no one understands it all. And that could be one of the hardest parts. To know what you feel called to do, yet not have the support you expected. The cost is not always visible on the outside. Sometimes it's internal. It's the battle between fear and faith. The tension between what you know is safe and what you sense is right. It's choosing discipline when your emotions pull you toward comfort. It's waking up with uncertainty, but moving forward anyway. Because when God calls you, He does not always reveal the entire path. He asks for your trust one step at a time. There will be doors you have to walk away from, even when they look good. There will be opportunities that seem perfect on the surface, but do not align with what God is building in you. And saying no to those things can feel like loss. It can feel like you're missing out, like you are falling behind while others move ahead. But what you don't see is that God is aligning your life with something deeper than temporary success. The cost also includes letting go of control. You cannot dictate how your calling unfolds. You cannot rush the process or force the outcome. And that can be frustrating, especially when you want clarity, when you want confirmation, when you want to know that what you're doing will lead somewhere. But faith does not operate on guarantees. It operates on trust. There will be moments where you question everything. Moments where you wonder if you heard wrong, if you took the wrong step, if the sacrifice is too great. And in those moments, the temptation to return to what is familiar will be strong. Because what is familiar feels safe, even when it no longer fulfills you. But going back will not restore you. It will restrict you. The cost is real. It touches your time, your energy, your relationships, your mindset. It stretches you beyond what feels comfortable and asks you to become someone stronger, someone more disciplined, someone more aligned with God's will. And while it may feel like you're losing parts of your old life, what is actually happening is that you're shedding what cannot sustain your future. Because calling is not cheap. It is not casual. It is not something you carry lightly. It demands your attention, your commitment, your surrender. It requires you to choose purpose over preference, obedience over convenience, faith over fear again and again, even when it is difficult, even when it is unclear, even when the reward is not immediately visible. Because the transformation happening within you is shaping a foundation that will hold everything God is preparing to place in your life. And every sacrifice you make is not wasted, but invested into something eternal, something meaningful, something that will only make sense when you look back and realize that every moment of letting go was actually a step toward becoming who you were always meant to be. There comes a defining moment where everything you have felt, everything you have wrestled with, everything that has been stirring inside, you can no longer remain internal. The whisper has spoken, the separation has shaped you, the cost has been revealed, and now a decision stands before you. To stay where you are, or to step into what you know you're being called toward. This is the moment that requires courage. Not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. Courage in a calling is not loud, not always visible, not always celebrated. Sometimes it looks like a quiet decision made in the privacy of your own heart. A decision to trust God, even when the path ahead is unclear. A decision to take a step without having every answer. Because the truth is, you will never feel completely ready. There will always be something unknown, something uncertain, something that challenges your confidence. But waiting for perfect clarity often becomes an excuse for inaction. Faith was never meant to be comfortable. It was meant to stretch you. And stepping into your calling requires a level of faith that goes beyond logic. It asks you to believe in what you cannot yet see, to move toward what you cannot yet fully explain. And that can feel overwhelming. Your mind will search for guarantees. Your emotions will seek reassurance. But the call of God does not operate on human certainty. It operates on divine direction. There will be voices that try to pull you back. Doubt will speak. Fear will speak. Even well-meaning people may question your choices, not because they want to harm you, but because they cannot see what you see. They cannot feel what you feel. And if you allow every external voice to influence you, you will remain stuck, constantly second-guessing what God has already made clear within you. Answering the call means choosing obedience over hesitation. It means taking responsibility for the direction God is placing before you. It means no longer delaying what you know needs to be done. Because delay does not make the calling disappear. It only postpones the growth, the impact, the transformation that comes with it. And when you begin to move, even in small steps, something shifts. Clarity begins to meet you in motion. Strength begins to develop through action. The very things you were waiting for before stepping forward begin to reveal themselves after you step. Because God often responds to movement, not just intention. You may still feel fear. You may still have questions. But courage is not about eliminating those feelings. It is about refusing to let them control your decisions. It is about grounding yourself in the truth that if God has called you, He has also equipped you, even if you have not yet fully discovered how. This is where purpose becomes active, where belief becomes action, where what was once internal begins to take form in your life. And it will not be perfect. You will make mistakes. You will learn as you go. But none of that disqualifies you, because the calling was never based on your perfection. It was based on your willingness. And as you continue to say yes, moment by moment, step by step, you begin to realize that the courage you thought you needed was already being built within you through every phase you have walked through every moment of uncertainty, through every sacrifice you have made, through every time you chose to keep going instead of turning back. And now, what stands before you is not a question of whether you are capable, but whether you are willing to move forward, to trust deeper, to step beyond what is familiar, to embrace what has been placed in your spirit, to answer without full understanding, to act without full clarity, to walk by faith and not by sight, to rise into the very purpose that has been calling your name even when you tried to ignore it, even when you doubted it, even when you questioned your own ability to carry it, and to finally respond in a way that aligns your life with what God has been preparing you for all along.